Welcome back to the Healthy Bit. My name's Henry.
And I'm Hayley. And this show, we talk about how we can make practical, stackable, healthy habits, making our life much healthier from food to movement and mindset changes. So that's our show.
And if you enjoy the show, please do share, leave us a comment, send an episode to your friends, whatever you can do. It really helps to get eyeballs and ears on the show, and it's really helpful. So please do that. We appreciate it.
And today we are going to look at setting goals. So this time of year, it's a classic time where people want to make healthier change, but it's a really good way to start looking at what it is that you want to do, and actually really thinking about what that goal means, because everybody's goal is different. And I think if you don't get the goal setting right, we often see in clinic this failing. And then people are left disappointed or injured because they haven't thought carefully through what it is that they want to achieve. So for goal setting at this time of year, in physio, we like to call it smarter goals. So that can be broken down. And so the S stands for specific. So we look at what specific goal you want to do. So that can include, what is it? So what is it that you want to do? Who are you going to do it with? Is it something you're going to do on your own? Is it something you want to do as part of a team? Is it something you're going to do with a friend? Is somebody else going to join you who's at the same fitness level, or are they going to join you and they're at higher ability than yourself? And also, how much of a challenge do you want to do? So that's where we start with the specific side of things. And then we're going to look at more depth as setting goals in terms of how measurable is it. So without something measurable, so it might be how strong or how many kilograms or how many repetitions you might do of something, or it might just be a distance. It might be how far you want to go, can actually really determine whether your goal is going to be set up correctly for you. And then we want to think about whether it's achievable. So is it achievable in the time frame that you think you're going to do it in? And is it something that you really want to achieve this year, or is it something in the next few weeks? Is it something next year? Have you got your timings right alongside that achievable? And then that feeds into the realistic side to the R as part of the SMART goal. So what's your real reason for doing it? And is it relevant to what you want to do? So if you want to break it down into smaller chunks, then those smaller chunk goals need to add up and lead into a bigger target, really. And if it doesn't work, then it's just going to break down and you're not going to be able to move on. And then thinking about the time side of things. So how quickly do you want to be able to do it? Okay, so a lot of people start to struggle with, okay, well, I want to do it now. And you've got to try and think about, okay, as physios, we talk about, okay, how long does it take for something to change? Like how long, the questions we get asked are, how long does it take for you to get stronger? And we would say on average 6 to 12 weeks for a muscle to really change and get strong. So if you want to suddenly become, I say that really super strong, you're not going to do it in a month's time. You need to kind of gradually introduce load, and we need to set a realistic time to the goal. Otherwise, you'll be left disappointed and feel like you're failing at your own goal set. And then what you do is once you've got your goal set, it's a really good idea to keep having moments within that training schedule or whatever it is that you're following as a plan to evaluate where you're at. So keep checking in, a little bit like a check-in with a teacher. How am I doing? Because am I on target or am I behind? Because the R of smarter stands for readjust. So do we need to tweak it? Have you gone past the first few stages of your goal quicker than you thought? Or are you a bit behind? And that might mean that the rest of the goal needs to be changed. It's a really good idea to sort of almost write that smarter like acronym down, and then you can actually really think about what it is that you want to achieve, because a lot of people are just too global with what they want to do, and they haven't carefully thought through how they're going to actually get to that point. And it's a really good process to do for yourself, because often you'll go, well, I know what I want to do and I know how quickly I want to do it, and it might be realistic, but they haven't really thought about the measurable methods to know whether or not they've achieved it. So some people go, well, I don't know if I've achieved it or not, because it might not be as straightforward as running a marathon. You know, you've got to the end. It might be that somebody wants to be able to do everyday life with less pain. So how do you measure that? So there's different ways of doing that, and everyone's goals are different. So goal setting is a really almost quite a
Yeah,
fun
totally.
and really good mindful thing to do at the beginning
Yeah.
of every year.
What got me thinking was that sounds fantastic. And I know SMART through work. So quite often if we're setting objectives or KPIs, or projects at work, quite often, someone sensibly will be like, oh, have you made it smart? And you're like, oh yes, yes, let's make it smart. And you go through those things. But it never even occurred to me that that was something that you should do from a kind of, from a personal exercise thing. And it's such a like no brainer because you're like, well, and also I'd never heard the ER on it. That's a new one to me. I like that. So make it smarter. I guess this is the kind of classic time of year where people wake up on January the 1st, and then what was it? People do like spend a load of money on a gym membership and say they're gonna suddenly get a six pack or whatever it is, and then they're all very motivated, and then within a couple of weeks they've given up. So actually, people have been through that journey, and now we're going to help them make it smarter. Oh, I love it. So good.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
like okay, so imagine me. So I'm like, I'm at the beginning of the year. I want to try and like, I'm not running very much, or is it good to? Is that say my objective is I just want to be fitter and a bit more, I don't want to get out of breath when I, run up a hill, or whatever. I just want to be a bit more active because that's quite vague. Like, oh, I want to be fitter and less unhealthy. Is it good to kind of really be a bit more specific and go like, well, actually, let's set a goal. So that could be, doing a park run, or that could be running a local 10K in March sometimes. So like, there's actually like something that you're aiming towards that then gives you, and then you can kind of break it down. Or is it good to be a bit vague? Like, what's your experience?
The more specific you can be, the better. Because a lot of patients will come in, or people, anyone will come to me and say, I want to be able to do this. And it's really vague. And this is where breaking it down is really important. Because, like you said, I want to be fitter. What does fitter look like to
Mm.
you? Because fitter, if you said to me, I want to be fitter, my perception of what fitness for you could be very different to what your own perception is. So for me, I might be thinking like, okay, Henry wants to be fitter. So thinking about your age, we might be thinking about, okay, we need your cardiovascular rate, your heart rate, we need your pulse rate to drop at certain points after exercise by whatever factor. We should be looking at a maximum heart rate based on your age, because you can do 220 minus your age, which gives you your maximum heart rate. And then as a
Okay.
training zone, you're sort of working in sort of 70 to 80% of that to try and keep your heart rate at a good training level. So that might be how I interpret that. And it might be that I think, okay, yeah, you might want to run faster without getting out of breath. You might want to cycle so far. So it depends on then what your equipment is and what it is that you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy doing something, you're also going to fail at whatever it is that you're trying to
Yes.
achieve. When we say fail, we obviously mean you're going to be left disappointed if you don't feel like you've got out of it what you wanted to put into it. So it's getting that right, because what the smarter analogy is really great for breaking it down and being quite specific. I always think that one of the last E should also be enjoyment, because
Yes.
otherwise, if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stay consistent at it.
No.
And that's really important. So for you, Henry, in terms of, if we try and set you a goal by the end of this episode, for you, fitter, what does that look like?
I guess probably running is something that I have never particularly enjoyed. Um, I don't run very often, but there's probably occasions where I have to run and then I feel a little bit out of breath. Or actually, where I live is quite hilly, so I'll take the dog out for a walk, and then he runs on ahead, and I need to like catch up with him um, before we get to the road, and I'll be a little bit out of breath, and I kind of think, oh, that's not a good sign. I should probably be able to make it to the top of this hill without being completely huffing and puffing, and so that would be something I would be like. that would be how I'd feel a little bit fitter. I don't know. So probably being able to run a bit better without hurting myself or being out of breath too quickly.
Yeah, so that they're all good measurable like parts to that. So when you say
Yeah.
you don't want to be so out of breath, so you can even score things like that out of 10, like how breathless were you when you did run a certain
Yes.
distance. And also not just the kind of breathlessness scale, but like pain levels or injury rates. So, did you hurt yourself, or did your knee tweak you, or were you feeling it in your back when you last ran? So you can use all those things as objective markers. And that's often like from the person who wants to set the goal, that's usually where they're coming at. So it's usually they want to be in less pain, faster, quicker, and just be in the best scores they can. And then as physios, we tend to bring in various elements to know whether or not you're achieving those goals. So it might be,
Yeah.
we might look at your flexibility rate, we might look at how strong you are in particular muscle groups, especially the ones that are mostly used in running. So we might look at calf and soleus strength and hamstring strength and core strength and back strength. And we might set those testing against specific markers in terms of where do we want you to be at, and which level do we want you to be at, so we know you're at less risk of injury. And there are
Yes.
little markers like, can you do 25 heel raises is quite a good little marker to say. That's quite tricky to do, especially on a single leg, or it might be hopping, and can you hop for a minute without
So
any
so
pain in your ankle?
a heel raise, is that where you stand flat-footed and then you go up onto your tiptoes and then back down
Yeah,
again? Gotcha.
yeah,
So do that on
exactly.
one leg 25 times. Okay, I'll have to try that.
Yeah. So try that. And is it equal? So then we're looking at, is it easy
Can I
on
do it sitting down?
that's cheating.
No, that's cheating. Okay, fine. I'll stand up.
But as a test. But to be honest, you can. I think in the previous episodes we've talked about how you can strengthen your soleus in sitting. So you have your feet on the floor and you can lift your heels up against the resistance of your hands on your knees, or you can put a weight on your knee, and that will help to strengthen you, especially if you're at work or if you're in an office-based environment and you can't get any exercise in. It's better than nothing. But
I'm
yeah,
doing it
there
now.
are.
I'm on 10.
You're on 10, and
I'm
then you
on
want to
10. Yeah, yeah.
you want to test yourself on a single leg and see if you can do 25 on the left and 25 on the right. And then you're looking at things like, is it easy on both sides, or is one side like, wow, that was really quite a lot harder on my right side than my left? And it might be that you're running and you think, actually, yeah, my right ankle feels a bit dodgy, and that might link. So there's lots of
Gotcha.
tests that you can put it up against. And then if you wanted to sort of say, okay, yeah, do I really want to achieve that goal? Is it relevant to you? Is it relevant to your life? And what's the reason for it? You had a little bit of an emotional connection as to why you wanted to achieve that, Henry. It was quite interesting. You might not have
Yes.
realized you wanted to keep up with like children, family, life, look
Yes.
after yourself. So there's that emotional, what happens if I can't be as good as I can be? We're optimizing our performance and our functional level. So if we can be as good as we possibly can, you're going to be pleased with that. You're
Yes.
probably somebody who's there's different personality types, isn't there? And you clearly always want to achieve the best you can be, which is fantastic. So that's maybe your reason or your motivation to do it. So that's good. And then looking at time. So your running goal for you, Henry, might be how quickly would you ideally like to achieve that? And then
Yeah.
based on how well you do with your, maybe as one area, 25 heel raises, how quick is it that you can get good at that? Because that might
Yes.
help you carry over into distances, and then breaking down your distances so you don't just try and run. Because a lot of people just run. They go, I want to be better at running, so I'm going to just run. And actually, there are so many other ways to be better at running, and you don't always
Yes.
have to just be running to achieve that. So you might be doing some elements of core work, strength work, swimming. You might be just doing flexibility. You might be focusing on your stretching. You want good muscle strength. You might be doing some weight resistance training. All of that is a really good way. So you want that kind of general package. And we would generally feed in some of those things to keep you on target when you're actually doing your run, or working towards your goal. And then after a while, we'd say, okay, let's check in with the physio to see how you're doing. and to see, week 2, week 3, how are we doing? What are your markers? We might get you back in and test your levels again and see if your flexibility, say
Yeah.
you can't touch your toes, or
I can't touch my toes.
you can't touch your toes.
No, I can't
Um,
touch my toes.
then there's certain like satisfactory levels and markers that we use in clinic quite a lot. There's a lovely combination of
Would that
tests that
be
I've
considered
used.
unsatisfactory?
Depending on where you are, if you're miles away from it, Henry, probably yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So
quite far.
yeah,
I think
and it's whether you
I can
can
touch
touch
my
your toes.
I can touch my shins. Is that good?
You touch your shins, yeah. So you might need to. So we'd probably set you some hamstring goals so that you don't then tweak your hamstring because you've tried to up your running, and making that sort of really, really
Do you know
quite
what's
specific.
interesting about the toe touching? Because I've always been really inflexible, and I've got I'm from a big family, and lots of my brothers are actually very flexible, and they're kind of as a family we all look quite similar, and we're kind of similar build, and yet there's half my brothers are very flexible, and it's no problem, and yet I'm the least flexible. Now my daughter can put her legs behind her head, so she's got absolutely no problem. But my son, he's he looks similar to me, and he's kind of a similar body shape, and he can't touch his toes, and he's 10. So I don't know whether can you like I often used to blame my kind of flexibility on that I've worked in kitchens, and I was just been like kind of hunched over, and I've kind of quite kind of and I've done a lot of cycling, so I've got quite strong tight hamstrings, I guess, because I cycle quite a bit. But then interesting seeing my son, who he plays lots of football. He's very he's very active, but he also can't touch his toes. And I'm like, well, maybe is it maybe it's not my fault, or actually do I need to do more stretching? Oh, but I'm trying to cope, aren't I?
I think, yeah, that's quite tricky to comment on unless I saw exactly how restricted your son is on his
Okay.
touching his toes. I mean, if you've been into cycling and your son likes to play football, they're quite quad dominant
Mm.
exercises. So then you need to focus on the agonist antagonist muscles. So they're given some attention and love to your hamstrings. And
Okay.
like you say, you stand in a kitchen where you lean forward, and that's going to tense up the hamstrings. They're going to be on a constant kind of firing. So they might get quite tight as a result of that. And sometimes you can have short and weak muscles, and because they're kind of contracted and they're not very strong. And then sometimes you can have stretched out muscles and they're quite weak. So, or any combinations of those. It's breaking it down into what injuries have you had before, and any tightness
Yeah.
in hamstrings can leave you more predisposed to back pain. So you'd want to kind of address that and make sure you are really caring for your hamstrings, because generally muscles are pretty forgiving. And they
Yes.
will, with constant input, you can create change, and some people just have to work a bit harder on that. There could be genetic factors involved because hypermobility does tend to do that. They don't fully understand exactly why. We obviously know quite a bit about the collagen and the effects of what's happening with hypermobility. But in terms of genetic links, there seems to be a consensus that it does seem to run in families. So maybe that's where that's come from for your daughter. And sometimes there's always a parent who says, oh, is it my fault because I'm flexible? And actually you look at both parents, and maybe both of them are hypermobile, or
Yeah.
maybe one of them is and one of them's exceptionally stiff. But you can grow out of hypermobility in your hands particularly, so it doesn't always relate. But yeah, in terms of a goal, so then for you, if you know that that's your area of weakness, that's where
Yes.
physios can really help, because you can look at all the kind of pockets or anything that's caused somebody to stop reaching their target or their goal in the past. They might say, I tried to run a marathon, and I will classically sometimes see people come into us in desperation about 4 weeks before their marathon because something's gone wrong. And we'll always advise that someone comes in just before that, because we can try and stop them hitting that kind of issue. But yeah,
Yes.
it's a really interesting thing to look at the whole person. And that's where setting, like say, using work smart goals and putting it into an
Yes.
exercise base environment is really good, and that's something we've worked with for years because
Yeah.
it's
I
such
think
a
it's so good.
useful strategy. Yeah, and you
Could you
can see
could you
change as well, which is good.
Definitely. Could you run through the acronym again?
Yeah,
Just so I've got it.
yeah, yeah. So S, for smarter, so S is specific, is measurable. A is achievable. R is like relevant or your reason for it. T is time, like how long you can do it for. E is for evaluate, so checking in where you're at. And R is for readjusting. So if anything needs tweaking, do you need to modify the goal? Do you need to kind of reset it? Doesn't always mean that that goal's out the window if it's going wrong. It just might mean that you need to lengthen the time that's going to take you to do it. It might mean that the objective markers that we set, so the ones that we talked about, say, for example, you couldn't do 5 heel raises, then we need to look at other scores and give you exercises to help you reach a higher level. So that's what it all stands for. So smarter goals.
Brilliant. I love it. Such good, a great time of year to, if you want to try something different or you've got something that you want to fix or, whether it's running a race or, being able to touch your toes. Now is a great time of year to, set those goals, make them smarter. And actually it'd be really, what be wicked was if any of you listeners have, decided to do it, let us know how you get on and what goals you're setting. I think that'd be, be really interesting and also help, motivate and encourage each other.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to send in, if they're struggling to set themselves a smarter goal, then I can look at it and say, this person needs to look at this area, and so that would be a good discussion point as well. So yeah, send in any
Definitely.
questions, anyone too.
Definitely. Brilliant. Oh, well, thanks, Haley. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. That was super interesting. Right. I need to go back and set myself some smarter goals for this year.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Henry.
Yeah. Cheers.